Aaron.
Yeah.
Why didn't you say it the first time I said Aaron?
Because it's pronounced Aaron.
You done messed up, Aaron!
Aaron is back. Welcome back, everyone, for a little bit more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. All right, we are talking about the update in one of the several lawsuits against Scientology leader David Miscavige and against the Church of Scientology. This morning, there was a hearing in the lawsuit that was brought by the woman who used to work directly for David Miscavige and his wife, Shelley Miscavige. A bunch of years ago, she escaped from Scientology's secretive international management base by jumping in the trunk of a car of a non-Scientologist actor who was visiting the base to shoot a Scientology film. She escaped those many years ago. They brought her back. They made her go through their very abusive routing out process that involves dozens and dozens of hours of interrogations. It involves signing away all your rights and legal forms on video with a Scientology attorney present and all this stuff. Valerie Haney is the name of the woman. She sued many years ago for all sorts of complaints, including trafficking. The court ruled in Scientology's favor that this lawsuit could not stay in the courts. It had to be diverted into Scientology's fictitious internal religious arbitration procedure. Valerie Haney's already been subjected to 5 days of this horrifically unfair and abusive procedure. Scientology is asking the judge for 5 more days. Valerie Haney's team filed a notice with the court in advance of the status conference that was happening today, basically informing the judge what a horrifically abusive, unfair, and one-sided process this thing has been so far. Valerie's not allowed to have any attorneys present. She's not allowed to record the proceedings. She's not allowed to have a transcript of the proceedings. And Valerie's team filed a motion with the court basically saying, this is horrific. And if you can't make it stop, the least you could do is tell Scientology they have a specific date that they have to be done by. David Miscavige's team filed a whole a motion with the court in advance of the hearing this morning, basically saying, I'm sorry, Judge, but there's not a gosh darn thing you can do about any of this. The hearing occurred this morning, and Jacob Harkey was there in court, and he is here with us today to tell us what happened. How are you doing, Jacob?
Doing well. How about you?
Doing great. For anyone not yet familiar with Jacob, you can find his YouTube channel right here at Jacob Harkey. He does amazing work. He's also been out working, helping and working alongside the protesters out there on L. Ron Hubbard Way and other places in Hollywood. Okay, so what happened this morning?
So it was fairly quick. Judge Gail Killefer called each of the cases up. She was going through her docket fairly quickly, and once we got to the Valerie Haney case, you pretty much hit the nail on the head as far as what has happened leading up to today in the case. And unfortunately, she continued to stick to the attitude that she has had, which is there's not much I can do. In fact, that was one of the first things that I heard the judge say was, counsel has filed quite a lot of paperwork for a case where there's really not much that I can do. And there was a little bit of argument back and forth. There was Graham Barry present virtually for the plaintiff, and then William Foreman and Peggy Dayton present in person for the defense. And Graham Barry made a comment that was something to the effect of, I understand that you don't have the power to make any significant changes today, but under the Arbitration Act, you should be able to indicate when we can expect to see an end to these proceedings. So basically what you were saying about a deadline, because right now Scientology is requesting an additional 5 days of arbitration without any kind of a guarantee that the arbitration is going to be done after those 5 days. So they could, in theory, it appears, just keep milking this for as long as they want. So that was what Graham Barry was trying to argue for an end to. And from what it sounded like, the judge said something to the effect of, maybe I could do that, but then I would have to have an indication that the plaintiff is not part of the reason this is stalling. I'm paraphrasing. I don't remember the exact words that were being used, but it sounds like the judge just does not want to make any judgment or interpretation about what has been going on in the hearings that Valerie has been going through with Scientology. And William Foreman, as I understand, in one of the filings that he submitted leading up to today, I know that you mentioned that Valerie's not able to have an attorney. She's not able to have a phone. There's no transcript. And because of that, William Foreman and the Scientology attorneys are able to argue that anything that Valerie and her attorney say about what's happened, it's all hearsay because there's no official record of it. And because there's no transcript and no official record of what's gone on, I think the judge is hesitant to make any kind of ruling about who's at fault for dragging this out, who is being victimized. It's just not something that she seems to be interested in ruling on, unfortunately. So she continued the next status conference to 8 months from now in February, and William Foreman requested that there be no status updates or status reports between now and then. And the judge said, yes, I would hope that there are no, I don't remember the exact words that she used, but basically she doesn't want to see any status reports. But by status reports, I assume that just means any kind of filings that are submitted to the court that have any information about what's gone on in the proceedings. Yeah. But that was the summary.
Or for sure, even because obviously the lawyers can file whatever they want to file, but for sure, the judge would be saying, I have no interest in scheduling any status hearings on any filings that are made, which, God darn. I mean, people might be wondering, like, well, if there's no record of this transcript, if there's no record of the proceedings, how is any of this information getting out? And basically, every day that Valerie finishes one of these arbitration sessions, these 8-hour grueling arbitration session, she does a debrief with her attorneys, and it seems sometimes a court reporter, while her memory is still fresh, to document as much as possible what has gone on in the proceedings. It's absolutely incredible. And there is an excerpt. I mean, I did a video, I think a few days ago, about the filing that Valerie Haney's team made with, or Granberry, the filing that Granberry made with the judge, just detailing the horrific procedure that she's been subjected to. And Scientology's attorneys in their response said, here we go again. Granberry has again filed a post-arbitration status report laden with hearsay and demonstrably false statements designed to interfere with the in-progress court-ordered arbitration and to intimidate and harass the arbitrators. Oh my God, harassing the Scientology agents. The defendants, Scientology and David Miscavige, are forced again to spend the time and the money on a rebuttal status when, one, the court did not ask for a report from anyone, and two, there is now another massive misinformation and dishonesty from Granberry, and this all for a status conference where the court has no discretion to do anything. Then what the hell is the point of the status conference?
That even kind of came up at some point, and the judge, I think, just basically said, just so that she keeps track of the case and she doesn't lose sight of the case, just where I guess we're just having these status conferences every 6 to 8 months. But yeah, like, it's a good question. It doesn't seem like there's much really changing about the case. It's just more, okay, Scientology gets another 5 days of arbitration, but then what next? What after that? Is it going to be the exact same thing 8 months from now? I hope not.
Right. Well, there is another lawsuit against David Miscavige that's going better than this one.
One sec, before I get to that one, I did want to mention one other funny thing that happened in the courtroom today. We were number 16 on the calendar for today. So the judge was moving through other cases that were on her docket, and there was one other case that had something to do with arbitration. And I don't know any of the details of this case. This is a case that has nothing to do with Scientology, obviously, but there was some question about arbitration between the attorneys of the different sides, and the judge made some comment about, gosh, this arbitration, there's just so many hurdles that keep coming up. Isn't arbitration supposed to speed the process up? And then I saw William Foreman like smirk over Peggy Dayton for a sec, which that was a funny moment. That was certainly something I didn't anticipate here, and about a previous case that the judge was listening to. But I just wanted to throw that out there really quick before we move on to the other case.
That is funny. And also, since that's true, like that is the point. That's the reason the judge, the court system and judges tend to not want to invalidate arbitration agreements, is because the entire point of this agreements is to ease the burden. Meaning from the legal perspective, at least, the point of these agreements is to ease the burden of the courts. And it does seem that Scientology sort of turns that entire thing on its head and uses it as an opportunity to make the courts even busier. Okay, so you were present. Was it yesterday for a hearing in the Jane Doe lawsuit against David Miscavige, Gavin Potter, Bridge Publications, Church of Scientology International?
That's right. There was a scheduled hearing yesterday. It ended up getting continued before the judge even came out of his chambers. So there wasn't a whole lot to update on, but there was something kind of interesting while the court clerk was just taking roll and making sure she knew which attorneys were there and getting the attorneys' cards and all of that. She mentioned before, like I said, before the judge came out, that the case would be continued. But she also mentioned that at the next hearing, which is July 16th, that trial dates are likely to be set. So that will be something to look forward to, because we haven't even heard a final ruling on what the motion to compel arbitration. Because can I back up for a second, explain some of that, what happened in this case in the past hearings? So this case was being presided over by Judge Robert Broadbelt, and in December there was a hearing where Judge Robert Broadbelt made a ruling granting a request from the plaintiffs for the plaintiffs to be able to conduct limited discovery specifically related to the circumstances that led up to Jane Doe signing her arbitration agreement. So that was huge, because nothing like that had really been ruled on before, to my knowledge, of plaintiffs' attorneys being able to conduct that kind of limited discovery related to what led up to signing the arbitration agreement. So anyway, there was a hearing on a motion to compel arbitration that was scheduled for mid-April, and the night before, the judge posted a tentative ruling where it appeared that he was leaning toward ruling in the plaintiff's favor, that the arbitration agreement that she signed was unconscionable, and that the case would be able to move forward with the typical litigation process in the courtroom, not in arbitration. But that next day, I came to the courtroom expecting to hear a lot of arguments from the Scientology attorneys about why that shouldn't happen. And then none of that ended up happening, because David Miscavige filed a peremptory challenge through his attorney, Jeffrey Riffer, to have Judge Broadbelt removed from the case. And I remember the plaintiff's attorney tried to make some arguments about, if he already signed, if Mr. Miscavige's attorney signed the paperwork indicating that he had accepted service in this case, shouldn't that constitute a general appearance? And shouldn't it be too long now? Too much time has passed for him to be able to file this peremptory challenge? The judge looked at his desk for a minute and then said, my hands are tied. This is the first general appearance. Just signing the paperwork indicating receipt of service doesn't constitute a general appearance, but this is Mr. Miscavige's first general appearance, and therefore he is within his legal rights to execute this peremptory challenge. And so that was the end of Judge Robert Broadbelt's time on the case. So I was looking forward to seeing the first hearing with the new judge, whose name is Kevin Brazil, yesterday, but like I said, it was continued. The clerk indicated that it would be continued before the judge came out of his chambers. But that was one thing that was interesting, was it sounds like we can look forward to hearing a trial date set. And if the trial date is going to be set before that, even by that final ruling has even been made about whether or not it's going into arbitration, I'm not an attorney, but I feel like that's a good sign that the judge might be leaning toward adopting Judge Broadbelt's tentative ruling, potentially.
I do tend to agree with you that the clerk, intentionally or unintentionally, seemed to foreshadow or signal what the judge has already decided. Because the fact that the new judge has not yet issued a ruling on the arbitration matter, that's one of the things that made yesterday's hearing potentially very fiery. Is there was this expectation like, oh my God, the new judge might adopt the previous judge's preliminary ruling, and we might actually, Scientology might actually receive a serious defeat at this hearing. And yet, like you said, the judge didn't make any such ruling, but the clerk comes out of the judge's chambers and says, we're going to continue until July 16th, or was it 16th or the 18th?
16th, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
And we will be setting trial dates. Now, I happen to have a secret audio recording of David Miscavige's reaction when the clerk said they were going to be setting trials dates. Here it is, guys. That is amazing. That is amazing. John, I knew this Mr. Bildahl would come in handy. Okay, let's see. So that's amazing. It seems like the Jane Doe lawsuit, the Jane Doe child essay trafficking lawsuit, has a lot of teeth and is getting a lot of traction. I don't know. I'm losing faith that this other arbitration case is going to how this is going to turn out. But I tend to be very optimistic about these things, but these judges in these cases are not giving me much reason to retain my optimism, but we'll see.
I feel there.
Thank you for being there and having such a good understanding of all these proceedings. It's really a pleasure to hear you lay it out that way.
Yeah, of course. No problem. Thanks for having me on.
For anyone just joining us or not yet familiar, you can find Jacob Harkey on YouTube at Jacob Harkey. If you're not subscribed to him yet, jump over there and do that, please. Anything else, Jacob, or are we all good?
So I did find out since I came here, I was also in court earlier with Dodge Landisman and Solomon Sassoon. I found out Streets, William Good, actually, there's a hearing today in an elder abuse lawsuit that's been filed by the Scientologist Joey. I don't know if you're familiar with which guy he is with the spiky hair. He's filed an elder abuse lawsuit against Streets. And I think that hearing, actually, what time is it now? Is 10:07. So actually, it could be starting any minute. The truth is, I know very few details in that lawsuit, so I'm hesitant to speak too much about the details of what that's all about. But I figured, once we hop off here, I'll probably hop back in there and see what's going on in there.
Okay, well, if you get enough info that you want to do an update, text me and we'll do something on that, okay?
All right, sounds good.
All right, Jill Davidson, thank you for gifting a channel membership. And Jill Davidson, thank you for the super sticker. Thank you, everyone, for hanging out with us. Thank you, as always, to everyone who watches until the very end. And we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe